Good evening and welcome to week 3 of the latest iRacing season, season 2 of 2026. And the Radical Esports Cup brings us to Sonoma Raceway in this third round of the season, taking us to the 1/4 mark already of another iRacing campaign. Myself, Ian O'Leary and JR Gregory taking you through the action tonight in the Radical Esports Cup from a rather unusual layout of Sonoma Raceway, which we'll talk about in a moment. Maria Augustin Cisneros is behind the cameras. This is a tricky racetrack, JR. It looks like it's actually a little bit foggy tonight as well, which is not going to be helpful. But at any time of day, this is a difficult and technical racetrack.
Yeah, Sonoma is so difficult, and take a look at that schedule. It should be noted that the schedule is largely generated by this great Radical community there on iRacing, and a huge helping of former or current Formula One tracks and a couple of American classics. We have Laguna Seca, we have VIR, and tonight's entry, Sonoma, should be fantastic, but very, very challenging, and we'll get to the reasons here shortly.
Yeah, indeed, we will. Just look at the circuits bringing us to halfway, by the way. Sonoma, Spa, VIR, Brands Hatch. I'm not sure you could pick a different set of 4 circuits if you tried. It's very, very whiplash-like, those 4 weeks. But anyway, we'll be here every week on iRacing and Racebot TV to bring you through it all. So far, Sebastian Lipp has made off to the best start in the official standings. Of course, it's very, very early in the official standings, so there's a lot of scope for this to change. But only 39 points between the top 3. James Barry and George Gonzaga are just behind. Ketil Larson and Havik Gullikson then round out the top 5 with Jack Veazey. He's having a good start to the season in 6th. Enrico Trenti, who we've not seen much of here on Friday nights, is in 7th. Then Christoph Lipp, who we also haven't seen much of yet. Heinz Braun and Oleg Gullikson, who round out the top 10 of the official standings. And the Racebot TV standings are back for 2026 Season 2, rather. These are just from the races that we broadcast on Friday nights. And Sebastian Lipp so far has got the best results from them. James Barry has also been in the top 10 twice, though. In fact, he's been in the top 5 twice. Andre Castro and Gal Valero have won 1 race, but they haven't been with us otherwise, so they're tied for 3rd. Havik Gullikson then rounds out the top 5. Ketil Larson, George Gonzaga, Jack Veazey, Rafa Blanco and Heinz Braun have all had at least 1 top 7 finished with us through the last 2 Friday nights. So those are the Racebot TV standings. Of course, a very long way to go in those as well. Just coming up to 9 a.m. in the morning on the 4th of April. It's tomorrow's date, so not getting that warm yet, even in California, especially not at this time in the morning. That's not really the talking point, though. The talking point is the layout, which I'll try and describe to you quickly. Obviously, it's the Grand Prix layout baseline to start with, so turning right at turn 4 instead of going on a bit further and turning right like you would on the old NASCAR layout. So going over the top of that hill and into the long left-hander at turn 6, then into a very sort of long hairpin, if you like. The longest, I almost call it 2 90-degree right-handers, to be honest, because it's a very elongated hairpin at turn 7. Then you get towards the S's, which are cut in half, really, by a chicane. What my track map is calling turn 9A. Although the numbering, as ever, is confusing as anything. Then you get towards turn 10, which is normally a very fast committed corner before the final hairpin that brings you to the start-finish line. It's not the most well-used layout in the world, JR. I know you've done plenty of racing around here and have not seen it too often. I think I've seen it in an IndyCar race quite a long time ago, but I can't... Oh, dear me! As Oleg Gullikson shows the dangers of the S's, even when they've been cut in half by that rather strange chicane.
Absolutely, and it is kind of a strange setup, and I gotta say that the S's are kind of part of, really critically part of the character of Sonoma Raceway, formerly Sears Point. When you're winding through those S's, especially that last left-hander, the car gets light over the apex, high velocity, deep into 5th gear, and I guess I understand why they do it, to keep the cars out of the barrier right there, but really kind of breaks up the character of the race. And I say that as somebody, my real life endurance team has had terminal damage right there, coming out of the S's against that barrier right there. But I would still prefer to drive it than to not, and not really a fan of chicanes that break up the flowing nature of a track like Sears Point here. So I'm going to give it a solid meh.
Yeah. you know, I am torn because I saw the Radicals race around here last night in a league setting, and James Barry was in it actually. He made a 3-wide pass for the win on the penultimate lap down into that chicane. So I've been more torn by that experience, I must say. But we'll see how tonight goes, and then we'll make a judgment on how this layout races. But it certainly is an odd layout. There's no getting away from that, and not maybe the most used of those here at Sonoma. Let's see who goes well tonight, though, with this starting grid. First of all, with Andre Castro on the pole. He won our race at Mugello 2 weeks ago. He's on pole here by a quarter of a second in front of Havok Gullikson, and then the two Lipp brothers are on the second row. James Barry and Heinz Brunn then on row 3, and look at the time gaps. 1 second already back to 7th, and Robert Woodward. That's how technical this racetrack is. Pablo Cabrera's alongside him, with Chris Wetz and Adrian Rustang in rounding out the top 10. Dennis Kyriakopoulos and Juan Perez are on row 6 in front of Mika-Henrik Hukkinen and Jeffrey Price. Miran Iani and Olli Henrik Gurksen, who had that big crash in qualifying, and Iani also didn't set a time in qualifying. They are bringing up the rear at the back end of this field. At 15 laps tonight, no chance of rain at all as expected, and as always in the Radical races here, the Radical Esports Cup, just 19 degrees Celsius on the racetrack expected, 66 Fahrenheit. In fact, we're not expecting any higher than 21 degrees Fahrenheit. That's coming up next week at Spa. We're going to see very low track temperatures throughout this season. And there you can see it. Early morning starts or evening starts expected throughout the season. In fact, all mornings, apart from Montreal, where we'll be racing a little bit later on in the evening. But low temperatures for these Radicals, nice dry conditions for them as well to put on the best show possible over the course of the next 15 laps. A good qualifying from Andre Castro, getting in the pole. How can he do over the 15 laps here at Sonoma? We are underway, and Gullikson gets off to a decent launch there, as does Christoph Lipp alongside his brother. In towards turn number 1, though it gets tight, and tightens even further in towards turn 2. Defoe and the contact is off, spinning to the outside goes Christoph Lipp and Heinz Brunn, who get caught up with one another. James Barry was looking down the inside, and he gets to 4th, but 2 of the race favourites, Christoph Lipp and slightly delayed Heinz Brunn, on the outside of turn 2.
Oh my goodness, and looking at that top 5, make that entry into turn 2 very, very difficult in the best of conditions. High humidity out here, ice cold tires off the start, and a 3-wide approach with Heinz Brunn in the mix. I just would have bet any amount of money that something was going to go wrong there, and you saw it right there as Christoph Lipp plummets to the bottom of the corner. Watch Brunn here on the outside, and Brunn might have gotten away with that little bobble right there had Lipp not turned in front of him, as Brunn goes a little bit wide on entry, gets in the grass there, as is so easy to do going up the hill, especially on cold tires.
Well, to be honest, I think Christoph Lipp might be pointing the finger at James Barry there, while it was actually Brunn he spun in front of. It was Barry who barreled down the inside in towards turn number 1 and almost caused a chain reaction effect there that I think Christoph Lipp may well see as the cause of his accident. He's already passed here it is again. This is actually further back. There is a look down the inside from another e-racing team driver. That might be Dennis Kyriakopoulos, although I'm not sure 100%. Pablo Cabrera did get spun round by it, though. He's now behind Christoph Lipp, and so is Juan Perez after trouble on the opening lap. So there have been a few drivers getting into spins on that opening lap, but as you said, it's not unexpected here.
Yeah, not at all. And you commented on the pretty big gap in qualifying times. We normally don't see that in these top split races here on RaceSpot of the Radical E-Cup because of the quality of the drivers that we get out here. But it takes a lot of practice to get the nuances down here at Sonoma Raceway. And we talked about it, Jake and I, last week, that the drivers who did not get their seat time in and really get this track figured out were going to be exposed, and we saw a couple drivers exposed right after the green flag. Yeah, indeed.
We're seeing a very clear front 2 as well. It looks like they were separated by a quarter of a second in qualifying. Gullikson is about that far behind after a couple of laps of this race, maybe half a second behind Andre Castro. It is impossible to overtake round here. I'm not even going to say it's difficult, but it's certainly not a Monza or a Spa like we've got next week. It's going to be a little bit different to that. This is the battle for 6th place, a little bit further down. Chris Wentz under pressure from Heinz Braun, who has his own positions to make up after being delayed by Christoph Lipp, although he wasn't sent to the back like the German was. Heinz Braun is moving up though, and gets back to 6th place in front of Chris Wentz. So we're right on board with Denis Kyriakopoulos, who will try and take advantage of that as well. A bit of a group forming here for 6th.
Yeah, and I got to say, some great camera work there by our producer Ramiro, and showing the in-car on the approach to that chicane. I'm just going to call it a slowy downy thing. That's a technical race commentator term for that chicane, but it's kind of heartbreaking at you. And I got to say, it's so thrilling to fly through those S's here at Sonoma Raceway, and that just completely tanks the second part of the lap. And I'm getting a little salty actually watching that in car because it just kind of destroys the character of the latter part of the lap.
I know what you mean. Absolutely. As I say, I saw a very exciting overtake in there just last night into that corner, so I'm on the fence. But yeah, I know what you mean. Certainly as a driving spectacle, as an individual driver, you'd certainly rather that chicane were not there. It's not without its challenge, though, as you can see. That I think even as in that form, that second part to turn 8, I think it is still. I don't think it is flat out even still. Even though it is a little bit more open, it's of course a proper feather on the throttle in these cars when you take the S's without the chicane. It's a tighter turn, of course, when you're taking that other road. It's a proper feather on the throttle, proper sort of medium speed sweeper, but I think it's still just not quite flat out. It's a nice challenging corner on the way in there, but then you do have to slow down in for a chicane. But let's see this race play out. We are already rattling through it here. Laps not very long round here. 4 of 15 already on the board. And Heinz Braun just beginning to pull away a little bit from Chris Wentz, who maybe is on his way back. We're on board with Denis Kyriakopoulos, who is in the closest battle on the racetrack at the moment. The top 5 have all spread apart with gaps of a second or more now.
Yeah, a little crazy out here. If you are used to tuning into the Radical E-Cup here on RaceBot and on the iRacing YouTube channel, you're used to seeing 10th being the gaps between at least the first half, top half of the field here, and the cars really spreading out here. And again, we talked about this. Sonoma, very, very difficult, not used a lot. Take a look at the start there as Cabrera getting swamped like he's pulling an anchor. But yeah, we just kind of talked about the nuances and the difficulties here at Sonoma and the need for prep time, and kind of postulated that those drivers who didn't put in their prep time were going to be exposed, and we're definitely seeing that as the field spreading out, and we might even see some lap traffic in this one, Ewan. And when was the last time we saw that in one of these top split races?
Yeah, well, absolutely, because this track is so short. Obviously, in terms of actual pace, that's not going to happen, but if you do see trouble around here, you don't have to fall very far away from the leaders to get lapped. Indeed, with only, well, less than a minute and a half around here, even in a race pace. This is another look at the start from James Barry's point of view, as he was behind Sebastian and Christoph. Look at this again, because this is the big incident, really. He looked down the inside here. Well, to be fair, I was going to say he misses the apex, but actually when you see that on board, part of the reason for the fact that he misses the apex is because it's almost stuck to Christoph Lipp a little bit. The side-to-side contact drags them both on forwards, of course, and that drags Lipp into Heinz Braun. I've got to say, after looking at the off-board, I thought James Barry was probably at fault for the Turn 1 incident, but actually having seen that on-board now, maybe you'd have to chalk it down as a racing incident, because I'm not sure he missed that apex out of choice. I think he was just dragged past the apex by that little bit of contact that they made.
Yeah, I think you're probably right about that, although just to play devil's advocate, on cold tires, you got to expect to wash out a little bit, maybe Barry overcooking that entry, a little bit of understeer, causing him to float away from the apex and causing that contact. But yeah, probably a racing incident. These folks race hard up front, and you don't get to be a 5, 6, 7K drivers like a lot of these competitors out here without rolling the dice, and you may have seen a little bit of it right there.
Here is Heinz Braun trying to remake these places. He was delayed in that incident that we just saw there. Robert Woodward is the one defending here for a top 5 position. Woodward hasn't scored any top 10s with us so far in our broadcasted Friday nights yet. He scored 2 last season at the Mexican Grand Prix circuit and at Daytona as well, a 9th and 10th place finish respectively. So this would be his best result of 2026 in our Friday races if he could retain it, as that was a little bit further down the field where there are still fights happening. Kyriakopoulos is at the front of the group there in 8th, and Gullikson for 11th at the front of a group that includes Christoph Lipp now as well, trying to make his way back to the top 10. Speak about our own standings, the driver's not really worried about that. Christoph Lipp, though, will be worried about making it up in the overall iRacing standing by the end of this season. Here he comes down the inside, Mika Hemrick-Hukkinen. Every race could count by the end of this season if you want to win the title, so Christoph Lipp has got to continue on here. Even though he's not going to get a result that is going to improve his iRacing, it's not going to be setting the world on fire, it's not going to be his best result of the season by far. He might need the points later, so he's continuing on here.
Yeah, and you know, you make a good point. You know, we will have 4 drops by the time this one is over, and Sonoma is one of those tracks. Christoph qualified pretty well, was an opportunity to score some points against some of his competitors who might not have had the time to master this track, and not going to get it done this time as we watch Heinz Braun. And fans of Robert Woodward, you will need to hope for him to get out of the way and let Braun through here pretty soon, or there could be some pink paint on that red SR10.
Let's see what he does here, whether he does decide that we're still in the first half of the race, I'm still on a good result, even if I let Heinz Braun through here, or does he continue on to try and defend? He's well within his rights to if he wants to, but will he decide to do that? The danger, I think, with letting Braun through is that Chris Wetz is not that far behind, so I'd be worried a little bit about the snowball effect, that if you let Braun through, then Wetz would think, well, he's not particularly interested in defending, so I'm going to have a real go at 6th place, and then you suddenly start to tumble down the order.
Yeah, too right, and Woodward is in the position right now that we have all been in. An early incident kind of puts you a little bit over your head maybe in the running order, and then you have to kind of decide what to do with the folks behind. As you see a little wiggle there out of Braun. The track is cool, but the humidity very high. You can see it on the screen, but also we're almost 100% humidity out here. Track pretty greasy as we hit the halfway point, but Braun is not going to be satisfied with that P6. There is going to be a move before this one's over, and it may not be a cautious move, let's just say that.
It's certainly going to be a challenge as he goes towards turn 2. He is good at that section, is Heinz Braun. Not sure whether Woodward is braking early or whether that's just the different speeds they're taking through that corner. But Braun really seems to hone into the back of that pink SR10 very quickly as they hit the brakes up the hill there. Let's see as they go over the hill down at turn number 6 whether he can get a run for turn 7, which is that, as I've been calling it, elongated hairpin. Really, it's 2 90-degree right-handers, to be honest, that you sort of have to double apex almost, but taking the widest entry. There is a road to the right there that makes for a very tight hairpin if that layout is elected to be used. And there goes Braun. Does he go to the inside for the second part of the hairpin? Not quite. He went out of our vision for a moment. That, again, might just be the different lines they're taking. There's multiple lines on the table through many places here.
Yeah, that 9 and 10 combo, it sure looks to be like Woodward washed out on the entry of that double right-hander. I thought Braun was going to be through for sure, but you know, sometimes somebody makes a mistake in front of you and you're not completely prepared to pounce, and very surprised that Braun didn't cash in that time. And Woodward putting up a stout defense right now, but cork in the bottle, as you mentioned. Heinz Braun right behind, and now Chris Batts only about 1.1 seconds behind with 7.
Multiple groups on the racetrack, this one for 5th, as you can see, then down the bottom of your screen for 8th, although Kyriakopoulos has actually dragged Maranini away, so not really so much of a group anymore, so much as a fight for 8th place between a pair of drivers. Schwetz is just slipping away from Braun and Woodward as well, though he's going to catch up if they start to fight. That was pretty close as they got into turn 4. But again, to be honest, there's 6 laps to go at the end of this one. I mean, Braun is very quick into turn 2, and if he's able to harness that in a late move down the inside, then Woodward might find it difficult to defend. But on the evidence of what I've seen so far, I'm not sure Braun is going to find this overtake very easy.
Yeah, it's pretty tough to overtake here at Sonoma, even on the, let's call it the JR preferred layout, where there's a little bit more speed coming into that final hairpin prior to the start and finish straight. Gosh, I'm going to have to search YouTube for that Barry double overtake there into that chicane, maybe change my attitude about it. But yeah, a pretty good overtaking opportunity right here. But that chicane leading up to this spot, oh, as Braun shows his nose in there. Woodward with nerves of steel right now, not reacting, but Braun getting a little bit antsy. But anyway, I think with a little higher speed through there, the opportunities to overtake into that final hairpin may be a little better than they are with the slowy downy section.
Yeah, maybe. It is interesting always when you come here. There's so many different layouts. Of course, well, in my mind, most famous one carries straight on there, goes straight down towards turn 4 there, and meets that rather ominous barrier on the outside if you get it a little bit wrong over that curve on the outside, and just brings you out straight to where turn 7 is on this layout, where our double hairpin is. But anyway, there's many different ways to go around here. There's even a hairpin much earlier than the final one that we use here. It sort of just skirts around the wall on the inside, uses all that tarmac on the inside for a very early hairpin. I've got no idea what the point of that even is, really, but that is a layout as well. In the real world it is anyway. So many different ways to go around here, that is for sure. The 10th lap is about to be completed. Woodward still able to hold on in front of Braun, who's putting the pressure on. Hulkinen still holding on to Christoph Lipp, which is a good effort from him, to be fair. You expect Christoph Lipp, who qualified on the second row pretty comfortably, to be tearing through the lower part of the field, really, but that's not happening.
Yeah, a little bit surprised about that. I kind of expected Lipp, as you did, to charge through the field. He's only up to P12 right now, and he may have kind of given up on this one. And up top there is that battle continuing between Woodward and Heinz Braun at the bottom. That is Mikael Hulkinen looking ahead at the aforementioned Christoph Lipp, who is kind of having a leisurely stroll here through the California wine country. And if you were in Northern California, just a quick reminder, Laguna Seca is not the only great track. If you have not been to Sears Point, Sonoma Raceway, you've got to get down here. The spectating is fantastic. It is every bit the facility that Laguna Seca is, and should be attended more in my reckoning. So if you're in the area, see a race out here. They have historics, club racing, IndyCar, NASCAR, anything that you might want, with the possible exception of IMSA. And I'd kind of like to see GTP's cars out here just for a laugh.
It would be a bit of a laugh. Maybe that's why they won't do it. But yeah, I know what you mean. To be honest, I think it's a better racetrack than Laguna Seca, but maybe that's a controversial opinion. But it is a great racetrack, and as you say, in California. To place that for the non-Americans, by the way, it's very near San Francisco. There you go. That might help you out. Maybe it won't. Anyway, Robert Woodward, 4 laps to go. 4 laps away, I think, from a fantastic result. He's raced relatively often with us here on Friday nights in the top split on iRacing and Racebot TV. He's not finished higher than 9th in 2026. Well, I think he's about to do that. Is he about to get his top 5 debut here in this calendar year? I think he is, to be honest, as long as he can continue holding on and driving the way that he has been, with Heinz Braun right behind him.
And you in there for Woodward fans, unleashing the double jinx, saying that Woodward's going to get the top 5 and the top 10 with Heinz Braun all over him like the plastic on Grandma's couch. And Heinz Braun can be a little impatient here. Laps ticking down. And Braun looking a little antsy to me as he shows his nose again. Oh my goodness, what could possibly go wrong? Woodward hanging on, though, only 4 laps remaining. And Heinz doesn't have his windshield or his helmet tear off, but very well, as you can see there. But very humid here in the Bay Area, and Woodward hanging on. Braun's going to show his nose again. Oh, not quite, and almost contact. Oh my goodness, Braun is flogging that thing within an inch of its life with 3 laps to go.
Yeah, that chicane he was just having a look on the inside of, and he's going again at the hairpin. Very close to contact down there at the final real corner on this racetrack. To be honest, this of course just bent to the left on the way towards the start-finish line, but 3 laps to go, and Heinz Braun, I think, has just got to wait through that final chicane, to be honest, and then have a go at the hairpin, or here at turn 1 and 2, although it does look like Robert Woodward has decided to be a little bit more brave now on the brakes and goes a little bit deeper in towards turn 2. That might be taking an overtaking opportunity away from Heinz Braun here and putting it all then on the final hairpin there, because you don't really want to be on the inside for that first part of that chicane, to be honest. It only gives you the outside for the second part of the chicane, which is much tighter, and unless you're almost ahead by the braking zone of that chicane, I don't think that's where you want to be. So Braun, in my opinion, has got to wait through there, then go for it through the hairpin. But he has been having a couple of looks through here at turn 7 as well. It's all putting the seeds of doubt into Woodward's mind, though, and he's increasingly having to show defensive moves here. And again there, he had to just keep an eye on his mirrors as Braun looked down the inside.
Heinz Braun dragging that front inside tire there, coming onto this back section, and how I wish we were turning right there, but you know what they say about wishes. I won't repeat what I said in the pre-show, but time ticking down here. Woodward, can he hang on? This definitely is going to be the best result that I've seen out of him, if he can hang on and no lapses of judgment happen in that red car behind him. But this is about the closest action we have on the whole track, as this field has really spread out a lot more than even I thought it would.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect it to either, but with hindsight, it does make sense, given how technical this racetrack is. Look at this, Andre Castro, 2.5 seconds in front. This is an imperious performance, really. He has not been challenged at all. Lap 1 and 2, there was Gullikson in the mirrors. He was looking like he might be able to stay with Castro, but as soon as lap 3, 4 went past, Castro has comfortably seen off Heather Gullikson. And he's on his way to a second race victory on our Friday night broadcast here of the Season 2 2026 season. Heinz Braun still looking, Robert Woodward. He's going to see the white flag next time by, and so he's getting ever more desperate here. He's looking in places where he wasn't before, but every time he, as far as I can see, every time he has a look, he doesn't properly commit to it, and he costs himself a couple of attempts.
Cost himself tense and cost himself front tire wear. I mean, it's I get the psychological impact of repeatedly showing your nose, but that is not free. It takes away grip, adds tire temperature every time that you do that, and if you do it on every corner, on every lap, the fronts are just going to blow right off of this car when you need them down the stretch. So very good point there, and that gap, Woodward doing a great job holding that gap behind. And just a shout out to Castro. You mentioned he's got about a 2.5 second gap up front. And Castro, a real life NASCAR driver. I don't know if he has wheeled a NASCAR around this track, but I'll tell you, Ewan, nothing will teach you car control like driving a stock car around Sonoma, and Castro showing it right now. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, as Braun has another look down the inside there. Yeah, Castro has repeatedly on Friday nights here shown his prowess, especially in these cars. He had the best performances throughout Season 4 of 2025, actually, in our standings. As Braun goes wide, and finally, I think that battle is over. Just running a little bit. Oh, and he's off now through turn 6, indeed. That looks like it's going to be that for 5th position. But Andre Castro, he won 4 times on his way to accumulating the most points in our iRacing and Racebot TV broadcasts in Season 4 of 2025. Well, he's going to have 2 wins in 3 weeks here at the beginning of Season 2 in 2026. Went missing a little bit last season. Andre Castro wasn't his best. He finally got a win at the end at Monza, but he's taken that victory at the end of last season and taken it into this. 2 victories in the first 3 weeks of the Radical Esports Cup for Andre Castro, and this one perhaps the most comfortable we've seen for some time. Yeah, really a great drive. And as we look at Castro go through turn 2 right here, Gullikson behind, you really can't overstate how difficult it is to maneuver through that corner. There's a couple of those sections in a row where you have a right-hander. The car lightens up right over the apex right when you're trying to put the power down. These cars have 450 horsepower, 1,000 pounds lighter than the popular MX-5 Cup. Mazda Cup race car, and no traction control. So these cars are the ultimate test of car control, and Castro showing that he's got it.
He certainly has. And he's got his second race victory in the first 4 races of this season. Havik Gullikson, second in the end, was being caught by Sebastian Lipp, but Lipp ran out of laps. And James Barry completes the same top 4 as what we had in our broadcasted race on Mugello 2 weeks ago. It's exactly the same top 4 in exactly the same order. 5th place went to Robert Woodward, who did hold off Heinz Braun in the end there. Chris Wetz was ahead of Denis Kyriakopoulos and Marin Ianni, who were running close for a while, and Adrian Rustang rounds out the top 10. Christoph Lipp couldn't get back to the top 10 after his lap 1 incident. Ole Henrik Gullikson finishes in 12th in front of Mika Henrik Kukkonen, Pablo Cabrera and Jeffrey Price. Juan Perez spent 3 laps repairing his car, but he did get out for the finish. Let's have a chat to our podium drivers then, or at least our top drivers, shall we? Starting with Andre Castro, the winner tonight. Andre, congratulations on a second race victory in 3 weeks in our broadcasted Friday night races. This one looked very comfortable, I've got to say. How comfortable were you out at the technical, difficult Sonoma Raceway?
Yeah, more or less. I think I wasn't like in as much of a rhythm as I would have liked to have been, actually. I felt more of in a rhythm last week in real life in TC America. So, but no, I love this track. I mean, it's when I did the GR Cup Esports League, it was kind of my best track there, and was able to fight for the win. And last week got my first real life win of any kind in like 8 years, first overall win in 10 years. So, yeah, it was really special for me and my family last week, and this week just going 20 seconds faster than I was in real life in the TC America car. But the flow is kind of the same. Just have to, I guess, trust the car a little bit more with the downforce, and obviously don't have as much feel as in real life. But yeah, I felt good. Felt like the pace was overall just good enough to where I could make a few small errors and still come out with the win pretty comfortably. So I don't know if it's ever that comfortable, because it's pretty high speed, medium speed corners where you're committing, and late on the brakes into the last chicane and the last corner. But yeah, I was looking forward to this race and felt like it was kind of mine to lose, and felt like qualifying was good. So after that, I was just about keeping it clean, and managed to do that.
Yeah, indeed. Speaking of real-life experience, by the way, JR was referencing your stock car experience, and wondering maybe whether you've wheeled one of those around here as well, and whether that maybe helped. Is this just a circuit you're very comfortable with anyway, really, at Sonoma, with your experience?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm just comfortable no matter what. Never driven a stock car here. Last week was my first time here in real life. So, but just, I don't know, I guess all the years of driving in the sim, and my first ever video game on my Xbox in 2005, NASCAR Chase for the Cup 2005, like it had this track, along with Watkins Glen. So I feel like those 2 tracks I've done, 10, or thousands of laps at least. Even though the NASCAR version is cutting the carousel, it has a little shorter version. But no, I do feel comfortable here, and not really sure why that is. Maybe just the familiarity of it. I think if you're not familiar with it, it can take quite a while to kind of learn it, just because it's so, I guess it's kind of punishing to mistakes, and you really have to commit in a lot of places. So yeah, not quite sure exactly why, but always feel comfortable coming here.
Well, it certainly looked like it tonight. Congrats on the win, Andre, and thanks for chatting to us at the end as well.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks to BS Hybrid. Thanks to you guys for broadcasting, and looking forward to the next one.
Absolutely. Andre Castro, the winner tonight from Sonoma Raceway in round 3 of the Radical Esports Cup. Havik Gullikson was behind him by about 2.5 seconds and joins us now. Havik, welcome in. Good to have you with us again. Second place tonight, being caught in the end a little bit by Sebastian Lipp. So are you pleased to get out of here with a second place finish?
Yeah, second place behind Andre is good. At the last 2-3 laps, I just did not take any risks and just secured the second place, because I felt I had the control on his pace. I think we were exactly as quick as each other. So yeah, but Castro, he was too fast, especially in the beginning with the small cold tires. But yeah, I did not very enjoy this track, so I'm very happy with P2.
Well, yeah, I was asking Andre Castro about this. He's got bags of experience around it. I guess it's maybe a bit of a cultural difference for I mean, I'm speaking for all Europeans, where maybe I shouldn't, but maybe Americans have got more experience around here than we have. I'm maybe making an excuse, who knows? But what about this layout? Would any of the layouts around here really have helped you in terms of liking this? Was it this layout you didn't like, or is it Sonoma Raceway sort of as a whole that you weren't looking forward to?
I think if I would have been faster than Castro, then I would like this track more. So it's just about you don't feel that you can push, and you don't feel that you have the speed that you want to. So the track is nothing wrong with the track. So yeah, nice layout. Yeah, it is what it is.
It is. Congratulations on finishing second. Nevertheless, have it for the second time in our Friday night's broadcasted races, and we'll look forward to seeing you again in the coming weeks.
See you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Harvard Gullikson finishing in second tonight. As I mentioned, exactly the same results as what we had at Mugello 2 weeks ago for the whole top four. Spa-Francorchamps is going to be our venue for the next round. It's 2100 GMT that we go live as always. So those of you who are now in summertime, which is all of us who changed the clocks, make sure you're aware we're an hour later than normal, or if you're in the southern hemisphere, an hour earlier. But JL, that was a race that you'd expect from Sonoma. But with hindsight, actually, you sort of expect big gaps around there, actually. When you look at the racetrack, you look at qualifying, actually in the race, yeah, they were going to spread out. A little bit more difficult to overtake than maybe I was hoping for, but I still enjoyed the battle I've got, so especially between Woodward and Braun there for the most part for fifth position.
Yeah, too right. And I love the comments there from Gullikson down the end. I would like it more if I was more comfortable. I would like this track more if I was faster. And that is what Sonoma does. It makes you tentative because there are so many places where you're rolling the dice and a slight miscalculation can end in disaster, particularly turn two, as we saw on the opening lap. So, yeah, I think Havard there really kind of summed up the experience of being a little bit unsure of yourself at Sears Point.
Spa could hardly be a more different racetrack, and that's where we'll be in 7 days' time, live, same time, same place, on the iRacing and Racesport TV YouTube channels, rather. I've been Ewan O'Leary alongside JL Gregory with Ramiro Augustin Cisneros behind the cameras here of this Racesport TV broadcast from Sonoma Raceway. It's goodbye from all of us this week. We'll see you in 1 week's time at Spa.